Imagine this. You wake up one morning staring at the ceiling, feeling an emptiness that words cannot define. You have a job, friends, responsibilities, perhaps even success by society's standards. Yet something within you feels unreal, as if you've been living inside a carefully constructed illusion, following a script written by forces you never questioned. Now picture a stranger walking up to you on the street. They lock eyes with you and ask with unsettling sincerity, "Who are you?" Not your name, not your job title, not your achievements. Who are you? For a moment, your mind scrambles. You pull from memories, roles, labels, anything to fill the silence. But beneath the surface, there is only one truth: you don't really know. This moment of realization is terrifying. Because if you are not the things you've accumulated, if you are not the expectations you fulfill, then what remains? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What if everything you believe about yourself, your desires, fears, and even your personality, has been shaped not by your true essence, but by unseen forces acting upon you since birth? What if you have never truly lived as yourself, but as a projection of what the world expects you to be? This is the great tragedy of modern existence. Most people die without ever meeting themselves. They chase distractions, drown in obligations, and numb themselves with fleeting pleasures, all to avoid the deeper question lurking beneath the surface. What if the life you are living is not yours? There is an unsettling paradox in human nature. People claim to want freedom, yet they spend their lives constructing cages. They fear uncertainty more than they fear servitude. They choose comfort over authenticity. And so, the years pass, filled with motion but no direction, activity but no purpose, existence but no life. You were told who to be before you could even think for yourself. Society hands you an identity like a pre-written script. Be obedient. Be successful. Be likable. Be normal. But what if normal is just another word for unconscious? Pause. Feel the weight of that realization. Somewhere deep inside you, there is a voice, a raw, untamed force that has been whispering to you since childhood. It speaks in the quiet moments when distractions fade. It wonders, it questions, it rebels. But every time it tries to rise, it is drowned out by the noise of expectation. You tell yourself, "I don't have time for this." But what if time is exactly what is slipping away while you remain lost? Carl Jung believed that true life begins not when you conform to the world, but when you confront yourself. When you strip away the borrowed identities, the conditioned fears, the unconscious programming. When you face your shadow. But here's the real question. Do you truly want to find yourself? Because the path is not easy. It is not comfortable. It demands a kind of courage most will never summon. The courage to break illusions, to embrace the unknown, and to destroy the false self you've mistaken for reality. The choice stands before you now. Continue sleepwalking through life or wake up and meet the person you were always meant to be. But how? To answer that, we must go deeper. We must uncover the hidden forces that shape your identity, the psychological roots of this crisis, and why so few ever escape it. This is where the real journey begins. Why is it so hard to know who you truly are? If the answer were simple, the world wouldn't be full of people wandering through life, burdened by an identity that doesn't quite fit. People wouldn't wake up in midlife, staring at their reflection with the unsettling realization that they have been a stranger to themselves all along. Carl Jung believed that the greatest barrier to self-discovery is the unconscious mind, a vast, hidden realm beneath your awareness, silently shaping your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It is not just a storage house of forgotten memories, it is the architect of your reality. From childhood, you were taught who to be. Before you had the chance to explore your own nature, the world molded you. Parents, teachers, culture, all acting as sculptors, carving you into something acceptable, something safe. But in the process, pieces of you were buried, denied, and cast into the dark. This is what Jung called the shadow. Your shadow is everything you were told not to be. The anger you were punished for. The wildness you were tamed out of. The dreams you abandoned to fit in. The feelings you suppressed because they made others uncomfortable. And so a split occurred. On the surface, you became a personality, a carefully curated self designed to be likable, successful, or at least tolerable to those around you. But beneath that mask, in the depths of your unconscious, the real you never disappeared. It waits, it watches, and it finds ways to remind you that something is missing. Ever wonder why you feel inexplicable frustration? Why certain things trigger you in ways you can't explain. Why moments of deep silence bring an uncomfortable sense of emptiness. That is the shadow calling. Jung warned that ignoring the shadow doesn't make it go away. It controls you from the dark, whispering into your actions, twisting your desires, and sabotaging your life. This is why so many people self-destruct without understanding why. They fall into cycles of addiction, toxic relationships, endless distractions, not realizing they are running from themselves. Society calls it laziness, bad habits, or a lack of discipline. But the truth is deeper. It is a war between the self you created and the self you buried. Why society wants you unconscious. There is another reason self-discovery is so rare, and it is far more disturbing. The world does not want you to wake up. A person who truly knows themselves cannot be controlled. They do not chase validation. They do not blindly obey authority. They do not consume mindlessly, filling their emptiness with products, entertainment, and fleeting pleasures. But this is exactly what modern society is built on, keeping you distracted, insecure, and seeking fulfillment in the external. Think about it. Consumerism thrives on self-doubt. If you felt whole, would you need to buy things to prove your worth? Politics thrives on division. If you truly understood yourself, would you be so easily manipulated by fear and tribalism? Social media thrives on comparison. If you were rooted in your own path, would the curated lives of others hold any power over you? The system is designed to keep you asleep. Philosophers like Nietzsche and Schopenhauer spoke of this illusion long before modern distractions existed. They saw how humans preferred comfort over truth, choosing the safety of the herd over the painful path of self-realization. Nietzsche warned of the last man, a person who lives in quiet mediocrity, avoiding risk, avoiding pain, avoiding the raw intensity of true existence. He lives but he does not live. Does this sound familiar? How many people do you know who wake up, go through the motions, fill their time with meaningless entertainment, and never question anything deeper? They laugh at those who seek meaning. They dismiss philosophy as useless. They scoff at the idea of inner transformation, not because they are right, but because waking up would be too painful. And that is the real problem. The path to finding yourself requires losing everything that is false. The self you built, the one that seeks approval, that avoids discomfort, that clings to old beliefs, must die before the real you can emerge. And this is why so few take the journey. Because it is not easy. It is a psychological rebellion, a breaking of chains so deeply embedded that most mistake them for their own skin. But what happens if you don't wake up? What if you go on pretending, ignoring the signs, burying your discomfort under distractions? What are the real consequences of never meeting yourself? The answer is more terrifying than you think. To understand, we must go deeper into the unseen consequences of a life half-lived. This is where the true danger lies. You think you can avoid it. You think that if you just keep moving, keep working, keep scrolling, keep distracting yourself, the unease will fade, that the nagging emptiness will be drowned out by the noise of daily life. But it won't. Because here is a truth most people refuse to face. You cannot run from yourself forever. At first, it's subtle. A quiet sense of restlessness, an unshakable boredom, even when you're surrounded by entertainment, a vague dissatisfaction with life no matter how much you achieve. But over time, the consequences become harder to ignore. Carl Jung warned that what you do not bring into consciousness will return as fate. What does this mean? It means that if you do not confront your inner world, it will control you from the shadows. It will manifest in ways you don't expect. Repeating patterns, self-sabotage, unexplained suffering. Look at the world around you. Most people are not living, they are merely coping. The person trapped in a job they hate but too afraid to leave. The one who hops from one toxic relationship to another, always blaming the other person. The one who numbs their pain with alcohol, drugs, social media, or workaholism, never questioning why they need an escape. They all have one thing in common: they are running from something inside them. But the thing about running is that it never truly works. Because the shadow, the part of you that holds your suppressed fears, desires, and unlived potential, does not disappear. It festers. It waits. And eventually it demands to be seen. The price of self-ignorance. If you refuse the journey of self-discovery, your life does not remain neutral. It slowly deteriorates. The mind becomes a prison. The less you know yourself, the more control your unconscious mind has over you. You react instead of responding. You feel emotions without understanding their source. Your fears, unresolved trauma, and hidden insecurities dictate your choices without your awareness. This is why people repeat their mistakes. Why they attract the same problems over and over as if cursed. Because until you confront what is buried, it will control you from behind the scenes. Regret becomes your companion. There is nothing more painful than realizing too late that you lived someone else's life. That the years passed by while you played a role instead of being yourself. Many only recognize this on their deathbeds. The moment when the distractions fade and they are left alone with the truth. They realize that they sacrificed their authenticity for acceptance. That they silenced their own voice to fit in. That they ignored the call of their soul because answering it would have been too uncomfortable. By then it is too late. The shadow turns against you. Jung warned that what remains unconscious will eventually erupt in destructive ways. This is why suppressed anger leads to explosive outbursts. Why suppressed desires turn into addictions. Why people who deny their inner darkness end up projecting it onto others, blaming the world for their own unresolved struggles. The more you refuse to face yourself, the more life will force you to. Through crises, through suffering, through the slow unraveling of everything you thought was secure. But there is another way. A way to break the cycle before it destroys you. A way to reclaim the parts of yourself that have been buried. A way to finally step into the life you were meant to live. The way of rebellion. The way of those who wake up. The way of those who refuse to be prisoners of their own unconscious mind. But how? How do you break free from the chains you don't even realize you are wearing? How do you uncover the self that has been buried for so long? This is where the real journey begins. This is where you turn against everything you thought you knew. Something inside you stirs. A quiet defiance. A whisper that says, enough. Enough of the distractions. Enough of the illusions. Enough of sleepwalking through life, bound by invisible chains. Because now you see the truth. The prison was never out there. It was always inside you. And now the question is, will you escape? But here's the brutal reality. Freedom has a price. To break free, you must be willing to destroy the version of yourself that was built for survival, not for truth. You must dismantle every belief, every identity, every attachment that keeps you small. Because the greatest rebellion is not against society. It is against your own conditioning. And that rebellion begins now. Step 1. Question everything you think you know. Jung once wrote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In other words, your suffering, your struggles, your limitations, they are not random. They are not just the way life is. They are the product of programming you never questioned. But now you will. Ask yourself, who taught me what success looks like? Do I actually believe it? Why do I chase approval? Whose validation am I really seeking? What if everything I fear is an illusion? Who am I when I strip away everything I was told to be? These questions are dangerous, because the moment you ask them, your old self begins to crack. And once that process starts, there is no turning back. Step 2, face the shadow or be controlled by it. This is where most people run. Because to find yourself, you must do the one thing you were always told to avoid. Look into the abyss. Jung called it shadow work, the process of confronting the parts of yourself that have been buried. Your suppressed anger, your hidden insecurities, the desires you were shamed for, the pain you pretended didn't exist. And here's the terrifying truth. Everything you run from rules you. That suppressed anger, it leaks out in passive aggression. That buried insecurity, it keeps you stuck in self-doubt. That unhealed wound, it turns into patterns of self-sabotage. So, if you want true freedom, you must face it all. Write down your deepest fears and question where they come from. Identify the behaviors you judge in others. They often reveal what you suppress in yourself. Observe your emotional triggers. They point to unresolved wounds. Accept that darkness is not something to eliminate, it is something to integrate. Because the paradox of the psyche is this. The more you reject parts of yourself, the more they control you. But when you face them, they lose their power. Step 3. Detach from the external illusion. The modern world thrives on keeping you lost. Everywhere you look, there is something designed to distract you from yourself. Social media, endless entertainment, the pressure to conform. And the most dangerous illusion of all? The idea that your worth is determined by external validation. This is how most people stay trapped. They define themselves by titles, money, relationships, social status, things that can be taken away. And when those things disappear, so does their sense of self. But what if you broke free? What if you no longer needed permission to exist? Stop measuring yourself by society's metrics. Define your own. Stop seeking approval. Give it to yourself. Stop letting your identity be shaped by the world. Create yourself from within. Because once you detach from the illusion, you become untouchable. And when you reach that point, when nothing outside of you can shake your sense of self, you have won the ultimate rebellion. Step 4. Burn the old self and rebuild from truth. Here is where the real transformation begins. The final step is not just about removing illusions. It is about choosing who you will become. And this is where most people hesitate, because change is terrifying. The old self, no matter how limiting, feels familiar, feels safe, and letting it die means stepping into the unknown. But this is the price of authenticity. Let go of the past version of you that was built on fear. Step into discomfort. It is the birthplace of transformation. Accept that you will lose people, identities, and attachments along the way. Because in the end, the only thing more painful than transformation is staying the same. And now, standing on the edge of your old life, the choice is yours. Return to the comfort of the illusion, or step into the unknown and finally find yourself. There comes a moment in every great transformation when the war within reaches its climax. A moment of absolute stillness. You have questioned. You have confronted. You have stripped away the illusions, burned the false self, and stared into the abyss. And now, standing at the precipice of everything you once believed, a realization dawns. There was never anything to find. The self you were searching for, the identity you fought to reclaim, was never lost. It was only buried beneath layers of fear, conditioning, and expectation. But beneath it all, beneath the noise, beneath the chaos, beneath the ever-changing faces of the ego, you were always there, silent, waiting, unmoved. And the moment you see this, everything changes. The final illusion. There is no self to find, only a self to create. This is the truth that terrifies most people. Because if there is no true self waiting to be uncovered, then who are you? Jung understood this paradox well. He spoke of individuation, the process of integrating all aspects of oneself into a whole. But he never said that this self was a fixed thing, something you could uncover like a buried treasure. No, the self is not found. It is forged. And here lies the ultimate freedom. You are not bound by who you were. You are not limited by your past. You are not defined by anything you did, thought, or believed. At any moment, you can redefine yourself. Because identity is not a discovery. It is a choice. The unshackled mind, living beyond illusions. With this realization comes a kind of invincibility. Because now you see the game for what it is. The world tries to shape you, to tell you who you are, to fit you into neat little boxes. But none of it is real. What is real is awareness. The moment you step outside the illusion, you become something rare, a truly free mind. And a free mind no longer seeks validation from the external world, clings to outdated identities out of fear, confuses comfort with happiness, mistakes control for security. A free mind knows that everything is fluid, everything is impermanent, and everything is within its power to reshape. The final test, will you act? And now the hardest part of all. Because knowledge is nothing without action. Many people glimpse this truth, but few have the courage to live by it. They see the illusion, but they remain in it. They understand their conditioning, but they refuse to break free. They hear the call of transformation, but they choose familiarity instead. But you know too much now. You have seen behind the curtain. You have unraveled the threads of falsehood. You have felt the weight of your own hidden potential. So now the only question left is, will you act? Will you step into the unknown, not just in thought, but in action? Will you build the life that reflects your truth instead of the one handed to you? Will you embrace the only certainty that matters, that you are the creator of yourself? Because if you do, then today is the day you stop searching. Today is the day you stop waiting. Today is the day life truly begins. Because today, for the first time, you have found yourself.